Case 1. The Liquid Armor, Germany, 1945. In the final months of World War II, as Allied forces closed in on the crumbling Third Reich, German engineers working in classified laboratories were racing against time to develop revolutionary defensive technologies. Among the most extraordinary of these projects was a substance that defied conventional understanding of material science. It appeared to be nothing more than a dark, viscous liquid contained in ordinary metal canisters. Yet when struck by bullets, shrapnel, or blunt force, this fluid would instantly transform into a rigid, protective barrier before returning to its liquid state within seconds. The substance was composed of magnetic nanoparticles suspended in what researchers now recognize as a shear thickening fluid, a non-Newtonian material that hardens under sudden stress. German scientists had discovered that by incorporating ferromagnetic particles at the microscopic level, they could create armor that behaved like human skin, flexible during normal movement, but instantly protective when threatened. Test footage, recovered decades later from hidden archives, showed German soldiers wearing thin vests filled with this liquid armor walking through machine gun fire unharmed. The implications were staggering. Traditional armor required thick steel plates that limited mobility and exhausted soldiers. This liquid armor weighed no more than a heavy coat, yet provided protection that surpassed the heaviest tank plating. More remarkably, it seemed to anticipate the direction of incoming projectiles, hardening precisely where impact would occur while remaining fluid everywhere else. Allied intelligence first learned of the liquid armor in March 1945, when a captured German officer mentioned water that turns to stone. Initially dismissed as delusional rambling, the claims gained credibility when advancing Soviet forces discovered abandoned test facilities containing residual samples of the mysterious substance. Chemical analysis revealed components that wouldn't be understood by mainstream science until the development of smart materials research in the 1980s. The technology vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. German research notes were either destroyed or classified immediately upon capture. The few remaining samples degraded rapidly when exposed to air, suggesting they required specific storage conditions that were deliberately sabotaged. By the war's end, every trace of the liquid armor program had been systematically erased, leaving behind only fragmentary reports and the testimony of soldiers who claimed to have witnessed its impossible properties. Case 2. The Radar Cloak Skin. Peenemünde, Germany, 1945. At the secret research facility of Peenemünde, where Germany's most advanced rocket technology was developed, another project was quietly revolutionizing the future of aerial warfare. German engineers had created a coating for aircraft that could render them effectively invisible to radar detection, decades before stealth technology became a recognized field of military science. The radar cloak skin consisted of a complex polymer matrix embedded with precisely arranged metallic fibers and carbon particles. When applied to aircraft surfaces, this coating could absorb incoming radar waves and scatter the remaining energy in directions that prevented detection systems from receiving coherent return signals. Unlike the angular, faceted designs that would characterize later stealth aircraft, this coating could be applied to conventional aircraft without altering their aerodynamic properties. Test flights conducted in early 1945 demonstrated remarkable effectiveness. German radar operators reported that aircraft coated with the skin would appear as faint blips indistinguishable from atmospheric interference, or disappear entirely from their screens while remaining visually observable. The coating worked across multiple radar frequencies, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of electromagnetic wave manipulation that wouldn't be achieved by other nations until the 1970s. The development team, led by materials scientists who had been recruited from Germany's chemical industry, claimed their breakthrough came from studying the electromagnetic absorption properties of certain organic compounds found in deep-sea creatures. By synthesizing artificial versions of these biological radar-absorbing materials, they created a coating that could be manufactured in large quantities and applied using conventional painting techniques. American forces captured the Peenemünde facility in May 1945, but found the radar cloak laboratories completely empty. All research materials, chemical formulas, and coding samples had been removed or destroyed. Several German scientists involved in the project were interrogated extensively, but claimed that the coating's effectiveness had been greatly exaggerated and that practical applications were decades away from realization. Yet classified documents later revealed that captured German radar equipment included notes describing successful tracking evasion by unknown aircraft in the final weeks of the war. Case 3. The Shape-Shifting Aircraft, 1944. In the industrial city of Augsburg, German aerospace engineers were developing technology that seemed to belong more to science fiction than wartime reality. They had created an experimental aircraft constructed from materials that could alter their physical shape during flight, allowing the vehicle to optimize its configuration for different flight conditions without any mechanical moving parts. The aircraft utilized a revolutionary composite material that incorporated ferrofluids and shape memory alloys into its wing and fuselage structure. By applying carefully controlled magnetic fields and electrical currents, pilots could cause specific sections of the aircraft to extend, contract, or change their angle, effectively morphing the entire vehicle's aerodynamic profile in real time. The wings could sweep backward for high-speed flight, extend for maximum lift during takeoff, or configure into completely novel shapes for enhanced maneuverability. More remarkably, this shape-shifting capability served as an advanced form of radar evasion. The aircraft could continuously alter its electromagnetic signature by changing its physical geometry, making it impossible for enemy radar operators to maintain consistent tracking. Each configuration change would present a different radar cross-section, creating the appearance of multiple aircraft, or causing the target to fade in and out of detection systems. German test pilots reported that the aircraft responded to control inputs, unlike any conventional plane, flowing between different flight characteristics as smoothly as water changing shape. The morphing capability also allowed for unprecedented efficiency, with the aircraft automatically optimizing its configuration for fuel consumption during long-range missions or combat maneuverability when engaging enemy fighters. The project came to an abrupt end during a test flight in February 1945. The prototype aircraft reportedly began an uncontrolled morphing sequence, cycling through increasingly unstable configurations before disappearing entirely from both visual and radar observation. Search teams found only scattered debris composed of materials that appeared to be dissolving into unidentifiable metallic powder. The remaining research materials were immediately classified and removed by personnel whose identities were never recorded in official documents. Case 4. The Sonic Paralysis Weapon. Oranienburg, Germany, 1944. North of Berlin, in the industrial complex of Oranienburg, German scientists were developing a weapon that could incapacitate human targets without causing permanent injury or producing any audible sound. The sonic paralysis weapon operated by generating infrasonic frequencies below the threshold of human hearing, targeting the specific resonant frequencies of the human nervous system to cause temporary but complete motor paralysis. The device consisted of large acoustic arrays that could focus infrasonic waves with surgical precision across distances of several hundred meters. Unlike conventional sonic weapons that relied on overwhelming volume to cause discomfort or disorientation, this system worked by disrupting the electrical signals within the human nervous system. Test subjects exposed to the focused beam would experience complete loss of voluntary muscle control within seconds, remaining conscious but unable to move until the effect wore off minutes later. What made this weapon particularly disturbing was its invisible nature. Victims would collapse without warning, showing no external signs of injury or distress. Medical examinations revealed no physical damage, yet subjects consistently reported experiencing a sensation described as electrical silence throughout their bodies during exposure. The weapon left no forensic evidence, no projectiles, and no detectable energy signatures that could be traced back to its source. German researchers claimed they had discovered that specific infrasonic frequencies could interfere with the bioelectrical processes that control muscle contraction and neural signal transmission. By precisely calibrating these frequencies and focusing them through acoustic lenses, they could selectively target individual organs or body systems. Some reports suggested the weapon could induce temporary blindness, hearing loss, or even respiratory paralysis depending on the frequency settings used. The implications for crowd control and battlefield applications were immediately recognized by military commanders. A weapon that could neutralize enemy soldiers without killing them would revolutionize warfare, allowing for the capture of strategic positions without the destruction typically associated with combat. The device could potentially incapacitate entire enemy units while leaving equipment and infrastructure completely undamaged. Allied forces discovered the Oranienburg facility in April 1945, but found only empty laboratories and disconnected acoustic equipment. Local residents reported experiencing strange incidents in the final weeks of the war, including episodes of sudden paralysis that affected multiple people simultaneously before resolving without explanation. No technical documentation for the sonic paralysis weapon was ever recovered, and the German scientists involved in its development were never conclusively identified. Case 5. The Cold Generator, Prague, Czechoslovakia, 1945. In the occupied city of Prague, beneath the Gothic spires and ancient cobblestones, German scientists had established a research facility dedicated to solving one of physics' most enduring puzzles: the creation of energy without heat. Their breakthrough was a device that defied every known principle of thermodynamics, producing substantial electrical power while remaining perpetually cold to the touch. The cold generator consisted of crystalline structures arranged in precise geometric patterns, connected by superconducting wires that had been developed using techniques unknown to conventional metallurgy. When activated, the device would begin producing steady electrical current without any fuel source, chemical reaction, or mechanical input. Most remarkably, instead of generating waste heat as predicted by thermodynamic laws, the generator would actually absorb thermal energy from its surroundings, causing frost to form on its surface even during summer operation. Czech resistance members who infiltrated the facility reported witnessing demonstrations where the generator powered entire laboratory complexes while maintaining surface temperatures below freezing. The device appeared to extract energy directly from ambient thermal motion in the air, essentially harvesting power from the natural kinetic energy of atmospheric molecules. German engineers claimed they had discovered a method to reverse entropy locally, creating a controlled violation of the second law of thermodynamics. The theoretical implications were staggering. A power source that produced energy while cooling its environment could revolutionize not only electrical generation, but also refrigeration, climate control, and industrial processes. Such technology would eliminate the need for fossil fuels, nuclear reactors, and traditional power infrastructure entirely. More disturbing was the possibility that the device could be scaled up to create localized zones of extreme cold, potentially weaponizing thermodynamics itself. Soviet forces reached Prague in May 1945, but discovered the research facility had been systematically evacuated. The cold generator and all supporting equipment had been removed, leaving behind only installation points where heavy machinery had once been mounted. Local witnesses reported seeing German trucks loaded with crystalline components departing the city weeks before liberation. But these vehicles were never intercepted or traced to their destination. Case 6. The Magnetic Viewing Device, Nordhausen, Germany, 1943. Deep within the underground factories of Nordhausen, where Germany's rocket program produced its most advanced weapons, another project was developing technology that challenged the fundamental understanding of electromagnetic radiation and human vision. German scientists had created a device that could render solid metal transparent without using X-rays, gamma radiation, or any other known form of penetrating energy. The magnetic viewing device resembled a complex periscope fitted with unusual crystalline lenses and electromagnetic field generators. When activated, operators could observe objects and activities through steel walls, armored vehicles, and underground bunkers as clearly as looking through clear glass. The technology relied on manipulating magnetic fields in ways that somehow altered the optical properties of matter, making normally opaque materials temporarily transparent to visible light. Unlike conventional imaging systems that detected reflected or transmitted radiation, this device appeared to modify the electromagnetic behavior of target materials themselves. Steel plates several inches thick would become visually permeable while retaining their structural integrity and normal physical properties. The effect was selective, allowing operators to choose which materials became transparent while leaving others opaque, creating the ability to see through specific layers of complex structures. German engineers reported that the device could penetrate depths of up to 30 meters through solid rock and metal, providing detailed visual intelligence about enemy fortifications, troop movements, and equipment placements. Military applications included artillery targeting through cover, reconnaissance of underground facilities, and surveillance of enemy positions without risk of detection. The technology promised to revolutionize battlefield intelligence gathering by making concealment impossible. Soviet technical teams captured the Nordhausen facility in April 1945 and immediately began studying the magnetic viewing device. However, attempts to operate the captured equipment resulted in catastrophic failures. The crystalline components would fracture when exposed to normal atmospheric conditions, and the electromagnetic field generators produced only chaotic interference patterns. Within days of capture, the core materials began dissolving into an unidentifiable powder that defied chemical analysis. Case 7. The Underground Submersible Train. Owl Mountains, Poland, 1945. Beneath the Owl Mountains of Lower Silesia, German engineers had constructed something that resembled a transportation system from a distant future. The underground submersible train was a magnetically levitated vehicle, designed to travel through vacuum-sealed tunnels at speeds that would not be achieved by surface transportation for decades to come. The system consisted of torpedo-shaped passenger pods that moved through underground tubes, using magnetic levitation principles combined with vacuum propulsion. By removing air resistance entirely and eliminating mechanical friction through magnetic suspension, the train could theoretically achieve velocities exceeding 1,000 kilometers per hour while operating in complete silence. The tunnels themselves were lined with electromagnetic coils that provided both propulsion and guidance, creating a transportation network that could connect distant cities across occupied Europe. Construction documents recovered from the site revealed plans for an extensive underground network stretching from Germany to occupied territories, allowing for rapid deployment of personnel and materials without risk of aerial detection or bombardment. The vacuum-sealed environment would protect passengers from atmospheric pressure changes, while the magnetic levitation eliminated the noise and vibration associated with conventional rail transport. Test runs conducted in early 1945 demonstrated the system's remarkable capabilities. Passenger pods loaded with measuring equipment achieved sustained speeds of over 500 kilometers per hour through completed tunnel sections, covering distances that would require hours by conventional transport in mere minutes. The magnetic guidance system provided stability and control that surpassed any existing transportation technology, allowing for precise navigation through complex underground route networks. Polish resistance fighters discovered the facility during the final weeks of the war, finding partially completed tunnel sections and abandoned construction equipment. The magnetic levitation apparatus had been systematically dismantled, but tunnel infrastructure remained largely intact. Local geological surveys conducted decades later revealed extensive underground excavations that matched the scope described in recovered German engineering documents, suggesting the project had reached advanced stages of development before being abandoned. Case 8. The Thought Amplifier, Austrian Alps, 1945. High in the Austrian Alps, in a research facility carved directly into the mountainside, German scientists were conducting experiments that pushed beyond the boundaries of neuroscience into uncharted territories of human consciousness. The Thought Amplifier was a helmet-like device designed to enhance and transmit mental processes using precisely calibrated electromagnetic fields and crystalline resonance chambers. The device incorporated arrays of synthetic crystals arranged according to patterns derived from studying the electromagnetic signatures of human neural activity. When worn by test subjects, the helmet could apparently amplify specific brainwave frequencies while suppressing others, creating enhanced states of concentration, memory recall, and cognitive processing. More remarkably, the device seemed capable of establishing direct mental communication between subjects wearing synchronized units. Research notes recovered from the facility described experiments where subjects demonstrated abilities that defied conventional understanding of human cognition. Participants could access detailed memories of events they had never experienced, solve complex mathematical problems beyond their normal capabilities, and communicate thoughts directly without speech or writing. Some subjects reported experiencing what they described as expanded awareness, claiming to perceive information from distant locations or future events. The most disturbing aspect of the research involved attempts to use the thought amplifier for interrogation and psychological manipulation. German scientists discovered that the device could be configured to suppress certain mental functions while enhancing others, potentially allowing for the extraction of information from unwilling subjects or the implantation of false memories and beliefs. Military applications included creating enhanced soldiers with improved reflexes and decision-making abilities, or interrogating captured personnel without their knowledge. The project came to a catastrophic end during a final experiment in March 1945. According to surviving witness accounts, a test subject wearing the thought amplifier began experiencing uncontrolled neural feedback, leading to what was described as a complete breakdown of the boundary between individual consciousness and external reality. The subject reportedly began speaking in languages they had never learned, describing locations they had never visited, and demonstrating knowledge of classified information from distant military installations. The experiment was immediately terminated when the subject suffered what appeared to be a complete neural collapse, dying while still connected to the device. Case 9. The Nazi Bell, Lower Silesia, Poland, 1944. In the remote forests of Lower Silesia, German scientists had constructed perhaps the most enigmatic and dangerous device of the entire war effort. Known only as Die Glock, or the bell, this apparatus represented technology so advanced and incomprehensible that its true purpose remains a subject of speculation and controversy decades after its disappearance. The bell itself was a metallic structure approximately 3 meters in height, shaped like its namesake and constructed from an unknown alloy that exhibited unusual electromagnetic properties. The device contained two counter-rotating cylinders filled with a mercury-like substance that German researchers codenamed Serum 525. When activated, these cylinders would spin at extremely high velocities, while the entire apparatus generated intense electromagnetic fields that could be detected at considerable distances. Operational tests of the bell produced effects that seemed to violate multiple laws of physics simultaneously. The surrounding area would experience gravitational anomalies, with objects becoming lighter or heavier depending on their proximity to the device. Electronic equipment would malfunction spontaneously, and the local magnetic field would fluctuate wildly during operation. Most disturbing were reports of temporal distortion effects, with clocks running at different rates in different areas around the device and some test materials apparently aging years in a matter of minutes. The biological effects of exposure to the bell's operation were uniformly lethal. Plants in the surrounding area would crystallize and decompose rapidly, while animals exposed to the device's emissions would die within hours, their cellular structure breaking down at the molecular level. Human personnel were strictly forbidden from approaching the device during operation, and even brief exposures to its emissions resulted in severe radiation-like sickness that proved universally fatal. German records suggest that the bell was part of a research program investigating what they termed time displacement technology, possibly intended for use as the ultimate weapon or escape mechanism. Some accounts describe experiments where objects placed near the device would allegedly vanish entirely, leading to speculation about dimensional manipulation or temporal transportation capabilities. The project consumed enormous resources and involved some of Germany's most brilliant physicists, suggesting its importance to the Nazi war effort. As Soviet forces approached the facility in early 1945, the bell and all related equipment vanished completely. The concrete structure that had housed the device was found partially demolished, with the interior surfaces showing signs of exposure to extreme heat and electromagnetic radiation. No trace of Serum 525, the operational equipment, or the research personnel was ever discovered. The only remaining evidence of the project consisted of concrete foundations and residual radiation signatures that persisted for years after the war's end. Foundations and residual radiation that persisted for years. Case 10. The DNA-targeted bomb. Posen, Germany, 1945. In the final desperate months of the war, in laboratories hidden beneath the occupied city of Posen, German scientists were developing what may have been the most morally devastating weapon in human history. Unlike conventional bombs that killed indiscriminately, this device was designed to activate only when it detected specific genetic markers in nearby human subjects. It was a weapon that could exterminate entire ethnic populations while leaving others completely unharmed. The DNA-targeted bomb represented the horrifying convergence of advanced biotechnology and genocidal ideology. German researchers had discovered methods to isolate and weaponize genetic sequences that were unique to specific population groups. By incorporating these genetic triggers into biological payloads, they created weapons that would remain dormant until they encountered individuals carrying the targeted genetic markers, at which point they would activate with lethal precision. The device itself resembled a conventional artillery shell, but contained compartments filled with engineered pathogens that had been modified to respond to specific DNA signatures. Upon detonation, these organisms would be dispersed into the surrounding area, where they would remain inactive until they came into contact with genetic material matching their programmed targets. The pathogens would then rapidly reproduce and release toxins designed to cause swift, irreversible biological shutdown. What made this weapon particularly insidious was its selectivity. Test reports described scenarios where the device could theoretically be deployed in mixed populations, killing only individuals with specific genetic characteristics, while leaving others entirely unaffected. The biological agents were engineered to be highly contagious among targeted populations, but completely harmless to those lacking the genetic triggers, creating the possibility of genocide that appeared to be natural disease outbreak. The implications extended far beyond immediate military applications. Such weapons could be used to eliminate specific ethnic groups, political dissidents identified through genetic databases, or even future generations carrying targeted genetic traits. The technology represented the ultimate expression of biological warfare, combining the precision of genetic science with the destructive power of weaponized pathogens. German scientists involved in the project reported that they had successfully isolated genetic markers associated with multiple ethnic populations and had begun developing corresponding biological agents. The research included detailed studies of genetic inheritance patterns, allowing for the creation of weapons that could affect not only immediate targets, but also their descendants carrying the same genetic signatures. The project's cancellation came through circumstances that remain classified to this day. In February 1945, the entire research facility was found empty, with all equipment and personnel vanished without explanation. Soviet intelligence reports suggest that the facility had been evacuated by persons unknown, with all biological samples and research materials removed so thoroughly that no trace of their existence could be detected. Allied forces who later investigated the site found only sterilized laboratory spaces and documentation that had been deliberately destroyed using methods that left no recoverable fragments. The few surviving German scientists who admitted involvement in biological weapons research claimed no knowledge of genetic targeting technology, maintaining that such capabilities were decades beyond the scientific understanding of the time. The true extent of the DNA-targeted bomb research may never be known. Modern genetic science has confirmed that the theoretical foundations for such weapons are scientifically valid, though the technical challenges of creating stable, targetable biological agents would have been enormous using 1940s technology. Whether German scientists actually achieved functional genetic targeting or merely pursued the concept theoretically remains a subject of classified investigation. The disappearance of this technology raises disturbing questions about the fate of research materials and scientific knowledge that could enable the development of ethnically selective weapons. In an era where genetic information is increasingly accessible and biotechnology continues advancing rapidly, the Nazi pursuit of genetic weapons serves as a chilling reminder of how scientific progress can be weaponized for the most horrific purposes imaginable. These 10 cases represent more than lost technologies or suppressed innovations. They reveal a systematic pattern of scientific advancement that challenged the fundamental assumptions about what was possible in the 1940s. Each invention pushed beyond the boundaries of conventional physics, materials science, and biological understanding in ways that mainstream science would not achieve for decades. The fate of these technologies raises profound questions about the nature of scientific progress and technological suppression. Were these devices genuine breakthroughs that were deliberately erased to prevent their misuse? Were they elaborate hoaxes designed to mislead enemy intelligence? Or do they represent legitimate scientific achievements that were classified and hidden because their implications were too dangerous for public knowledge? What emerges from these cases is evidence of a research program that operated according to principles and methodologies that differed fundamentally from conventional scientific approaches. German scientists appeared to be working with theoretical frameworks and experimental techniques that produced results contradicting established physical laws and biological limitations. The systematic disappearance of these technologies suggests coordination between multiple agencies and governments to ensure that certain knowledge never entered public circulation. The thoroughness of this suppression, involving the destruction of equipment, elimination of research materials, and silencing of personnel, indicates that the technologies represented threats significant enough to justify unprecedented levels of secrecy and control. Perhaps most disturbing is what these suppressed inventions reveal about the relationship between scientific advancement and moral responsibility. The progression from defensive technologies like liquid armor to weapons of genetic extermination illustrates how rapidly beneficial innovations can evolve into tools of unprecedented destruction when developed without ethical constraints. The legacy of these Nazi inventions continues to influence contemporary discussions about emerging technologies, particularly in areas involving artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and advanced materials science. The questions raised by their development and suppression remain as relevant today as they were in 1945. Who decides which technologies are too dangerous for public knowledge? What happens when scientific progress outpaces moral understanding? And how do we prevent the repetition of research programs that prioritize technological advancement over human dignity? These 10 suppressed inventions stand as testimony to the darkest possibilities of human ingenuity, reminding us that the greatest scientific achievements mean nothing if they are pursued without wisdom, compassion, and respect for the fundamental value of human life. Reminding us that the greatest scientific ingenuity achievements without nothing if they are pursue mean wisdom and respect for the compass fundamental value of human life. The pattern becomes undeniable when examined across decades and continents. These 10 cases do not represent isolated incidents of wartime technology development. They reveal a coordinated research program that operated beyond the boundaries of conventional science, pursuing innovations that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics, biology, and human capability. What emerges is evidence of scientific methodologies that produced results contradicting established natural laws. The liquid armor that anticipated projectile impact, the cold generator that violated thermodynamic principles, the thought amplifier that enabled non-local consciousness effects. Each case suggests access to theoretical frameworks that mainstream science would not develop for decades, if at all. The systematic erasure of these technologies points to recognition by multiple intelligence agencies that certain knowledge posed existential threats to established order. The thoroughness of suppression, involving destruction of equipment, elimination of personnel, and classification of research materials, indicates coordination between allied powers to prevent technologies from entering public circulation. Perhaps most disturbing is the progression revealed across these cases. Early projects focused on defensive applications and transportation improvements. Later developments pursued weapons that could manipulate space, time, and human consciousness itself. The final case represents the ultimate expression of scientific capability without moral constraint. A weapon designed not merely to kill, but to selectively exterminate based on genetic identity. The disappearance of these technologies raises questions that remain unanswered decades later. Were German scientists operating with knowledge that originated beyond conventional research? Did their theoretical frameworks derive from sources that have never been publicly acknowledged? The rapid advancement from defensive innovations to reality-altering weapons suggests access to principles that transcended normal scientific progression. The implications extend far beyond historical curiosity. In an era where genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and quantum technologies are advancing rapidly, the Nazi research program serves as a warning about the consequences of scientific development without ethical oversight. The progression from beneficial innovations to weapons of unprecedented destruction illustrates how quickly human ingenuity can evolve into tools for eliminating humanity itself. These suppressed inventions remind us that the greatest technological achievements become meaningless when pursued without wisdom, compassion, and respect for human dignity. The legacy of these Nazi innovations continues to influence contemporary discussions about emerging technologies, particularly regarding who decides which scientific knowledge is too dangerous for public access and how we prevent the repetition of research programs that prioritize advancement over moral responsibility. The 10 cases stand as testimony to both the extraordinary potential and terrifying dangers of human scientific capability, serving as a permanent reminder that progress without ethics inevitably leads to destruction. To both the extraordinary potential and terrifying dangers of human, serving as a permanent scientific capability reminder that progress without ethics inevitably leads to destruction. The silence that followed the war was not the silence of peace, but the silence of secrets buried too deep to surface. These 10 suppressed inventions reveal a truth more disturbing than any individual technology: that human progress is not guided by discovery, but by permission. Each device that vanished, each scientist who disappeared, each laboratory that was emptied, represents a deliberate choice about what humanity would be allowed to become. We live in a world shaped not by what was invented, but by what was erased. The liquid armor that could have ended the age of heavy military equipment. The radar cloak that could have made stealth technology obsolete before it began. The cold generator that could have eliminated energy scarcity entirely. The thought amplifier that could have unlocked the full potential of human consciousness. Each suppression was a fork in the road of human development, and someone, somewhere, chose the path that led us here. The pattern is clear. Breakthrough technologies that threaten existing power structures are not evaluated by their potential to benefit humanity, but by their danger to those who control it. The progression from defensive innovations to reality-altering weapons shows how quickly scientific advancement can transform from salvation to extinction when pursued without moral boundaries. These suppressed inventions stand as proof that the future we inhabit is not the future we could have had. They remind us that every technological limitation we accept, every scientific impossibility we believe, every boundary we consider permanent, may be nothing more than the result of decisions made in secret by those who prefer humanity to remain exactly where it is.